Welcome to Youssef's Library. Today we're embarking on a deep dive into, well, a really profound source. It challenges our fundamental understanding of who we are, how we experience the world, and maybe where true peace actually lies.
And our guiding light for this exploration is Eckhart Tolle's big one, The Power of Now, a guide to spiritual enlightenment. It's it's more than just a book, isn't it? It's really designed as a direct path for you to quickly grasp these essential insights, about being present and maybe freeing yourself from suffering.
Right, so our mission today is to try and pull out the most powerful nuggets from this material. We want to help you see the surprising stuff, connect the dots between your inner life and the world around you, and hopefully discover some practical shifts, ways of seeing things that can genuinely impact your daily life. This isn't just
Right.
theory, is it? Tolle really offers a kind of blueprint.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is the origin story of the book itself. Toll talks about this period in his life where he hit this absolute rock bottom feeling, I cannot live with myself any longer, which is a peculiar thought,
It really is. If you can't live with yourself,
Right.
who are the you and the myself?
Exactly. And he says that thought sparked this huge realization. Am I one or two? If I cannot live with myself, there must be two of me. And this insight just plunged him into this profound, initially terrifying, he says, but ultimately a blissful experience. It ended up with him spending almost 2 years just sitting on park benches, not depressed, but in the state of intense, uncaused joy.
Intense joy.
Yeah.
Just sitting on a bench. Wow. And what's amazing is that people apparently started coming up to him, right? Saying things like, I want what you have. Can you give it to me or show me how?
Imagine that. Someone asks for the secret to peace, and his answer was, well, incredibly simple. You have it already. You just can't feel it because your mind is making too much noise.
That really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? That this thing we're all striving for, this peace, it's actually already there, just buried under, under our own thoughts. And that realization, that simple answer, eventually grew into this book we're looking at today.
Right.
It offers a path back to that peace.
Okay, so let's unpack this core idea then. You are not your mind. Tolle says our mind is basically an instrument, yeah? A tool for us. But the problem comes when the tool starts using us.
Exactly. Your mind's there for specific tasks, solving problems, planning things, talking. But once the job's done, you're meant to put it down. And Tolle makes a really surprising point here. He says something like 80 to 90% of most people's thinking isn't just repetitive and useless. It's often actively harmful because it's so dysfunctional and negative.
So it's not just like white noise, it's actually bad for us. Precisely. He even says the mind loves to get its teeth into problems. Think about that. It's almost addicted to them. That's why, he jokes, it does crossword puzzles and builds atom bombs. And all this nonstop thinking, this constant chatter inside, he says it leads to a serious leakage of vital energy. Just picture how much energy we waste on internal arguments, worrying, replaying stuff, all things that don't help us now.
It's kind of staggering when you think about it.
It really is. So all this mental activity, this identifying with our thoughts, Tolle says it creates something called the ego. What exactly is this ego, and why is it such a problem?
The ego essentially is a false self. It's made up by the mind. It's not who you really are. It's more like a construct built from your history, your roles, beliefs, possessions, how you see yourself.
Okay.
And because it's, he calls it a phantom nature because it's not real, it's inherently vulnerable, deeply insecure. It always feels like it's under threat, even if someone looks really confident on the outside.
So the ego is constantly on guard. Yeah, constantly. And the body feels this continuous message, danger, I'm under threat, coming from the ego. And that generates the emotion we call fear. It's this awful feedback loop. Most people, Tolle says, live in this constant state of fear. Sometimes it's sharp anxiety, other times just this vague underlying unease or dissatisfaction.
And how does this shaky ego keep itself going?
Well, it desperately needs to identify with things outside itself to feel real. Possessions, your job, social status, education, how you look, relationships, even your political or religious beliefs. Anything, really. But Tolle is really clear. None of these is you. The ego's needs are endless because it's trying to prop up something that isn't solid. Nothing external ever gives it lasting fulfillment. It's always searching, always wanting.
Okay, this sounds like a deep personal struggle, but Tolle pushes it further, doesn't he? What about the bigger picture, the implications for humanity? He uses some strong language, calling humanity dangerously insane and very sick.
He certainly does. No punches pulled there. He points to things like, over 100 million people killed by other humans in the 20th century alone. And that's not even counting the daily mental, emotional, physical violence we see. This, he argues, is a direct reflection of that deeply negative state. It's the collective result of this dysfunctional, ego-driven mind running rampant.
So this undercurrent of constant unease, it's not just a modern thing.
Oh, not at all. He reminds us that spiritual teachers have seen this and talked about it for ages. Jesus asking, "Why are you always anxious?" Or the Buddha, centuries before, teaching that the root of suffering is this constant wanting, this craving. Tolle suggests our whole dehumanized industrial civilization is actually built on this collective dysfunction, this identification with the mind. It ends up perpetuating the very problems it thinks it's solving.
That's quite an indictment, isn't it? So if the mind is the problem, Tolle is very clear that the solution isn't trying to figure it out with the mind. He says the problems of the mind cannot be solved on the level of the mind. So if thinking isn't the way out, what is the path to freedom?
The path, the key, the doorway. It's the now. It's this present moment. Spiritual masters throughout history, figures like Jesus, they've all pointed to this moment as the only real access point to, let's say, the spiritual dimension. Think about the Gospels. Jesus saying, "Take no thought for the morrow," or pointing out the flowers that just live with ease in the timeless now.
But as you say, the sheer radical simplicity of that gets missed, doesn't it? It's not complex philosophy. It's about right now.
Exactly. And he makes this subtle but really key distinction that often gets overlooked. The difference between your life situation and your actual life. That sounds like more than just playing with words, doesn't it?
It really does. What's the difference there?
Yeah. Okay, so your life situation exists in time. That's the story, right? All the problems, the past regrets, the future worries, the conditions you think define you, that's all mind stuff, he calls it. But your actual life, your real life, is always now. This present moment. That's the only thing that's truly real. And Tolle challenges you directly. Do you have a problem now? Not tomorrow, not in 10 minutes, but right this second. He suggests that all problems are illusions of the mind. They only exist when we're lost in the past or future.
Wow. All problems are illusions of the mind. That's huge. And this connects directly to how we experience pain, right?
Yeah.
How we create it.
Absolutely. The pain you create now is always some form of non-acceptance, some form of unconscious resistance to what is. Right now in this moment, this resistance, this inner no to reality, leads to what he calls the pain body. This isn't just feeling sad for a bit. It's an accumulation of old emotional pain from your past, all the anger you never dealt with, the grief, the wounds. It builds up.
So this pain body, it sounds like this thing lurking inside us. How does it work?
Well, like any entity, it wants to survive. And it feeds on experiences that create more pain. So anger, being destructive, deep grief, emotional drama. It loves that stuff. It can even feed on physical illness if that illness makes you suffer emotionally. It literally draws energy from negativity, trying to pull you back into that state again and again.
Okay, so how on earth do we deal with this thing, this pain body, and actually get into the... Now, it sounds pretty powerful if it's always trying to drag us down.
Tolle's answer is, again, kind of counterintuitive. He says unconsciousness creates it, consciousness transmutes it into itself. That you can't fight the pain body. It's like trying to fight darkness, right? What happens? You just make it seem more real. Instead, he says, watching it is enough. Just observing it. And this watching means accepting it's there as part of what is in that moment, but without judging it, without resisting it, and crucially, without letting it become you.
So just the act of observation is the key, not trying to change it or suppress it.
Yes. When you identify with your mind, with those painful thoughts and feelings, you give the pain body energy. You're feeding it, but just observing it, witnessing it without getting caught up in the story, that withdraws the energy. And that energy transforms into presence, pure awareness. And that presence lets you step out of psychological time and the suffering that comes with it. It's a fundamental shift from being the pain to being the awareness of the pain. It changes everything.
Beyond watching the pain body, Tolle also talks about other ways in, other portals to the now.
Yeah.
What are some of the maybe easier entry points for someone starting out?
Yeah, he mentions a few. One of the simplest, he says, is through your body. Just focusing your attention inside, on the inner energy field. Can you feel the aliveness in your hands right now? Or your feet, your whole body? Tuning into that can make you aware of this deep stillness underneath all the mental noise. It's very grounding.
So feeling the body from the inside out, not just thinking about it.
Exactly that. Or say you need a creative solution. He suggests you can kind of oscillate between thinking and stillness, letting insights bubble up from a deeper place. He even says you can think with your whole body, even really simple things, Like taking one truly conscious breath, really feeling the air come in and go out, or just looking intently at a flower without naming it or analyzing it, just pure seeing. Those moments can create a gap in the incessant stream of thought. They open a little window to the side. Now, these aren't just ideas, they're things you can actually do.
Now, a word like surrender can often be tricky, can't it? People hear it and think it means giving up, being passive, just letting things happen. But Tolle's take is quite different, maybe even the opposite.
It really is. He argues that true surrender is perfectly compatible with taking action, initiating change, or achieving goals. So it's not about doing nothing. The key difference, he explains, is that when your actions come from a place of presence, when they're infused with being, they become a joyful celebration of life energy.
So it's less about what you do and more about the state you're in while you're doing it.
That's it, exactly. He stresses that the quality of your consciousness at this moment is what really shapes your future. If what you're doing right now doesn't have some joy, ease, and lightness about it, if it feels like a burden, a struggle, a means to an end, then time is covering up the present moment. You're lost in psychological time, stuck in the past, or reaching for the future instead of being here. Surrender means fully accepting this present moment, whatever it contains, and then acting from that space of acceptance if action is needed.
That way of thinking about surrender seems incredibly relevant for relationships, which, let's face it, can be amazing, but also where we often run into our biggest difficulties.
Absolutely. And Tolle offers a really radical perspective here. He says relationships are not here to make you happy or fulfilled.
Whoa, okay. That cuts against how most of us approach them, right? We usually go in hoping to get happiness.
We do. But Tolle argues the challenges, the friction, the conflicts that inevitably come up in relationships are actually disguised opportunities for salvation, opportunities to wake up. For example, instead of just reacting automatically when your partner does or says something that pushes your buttons, you can pause. You can watch your own reaction, that flash of anger, that defensiveness, and just by observing it, you create this clear and still space of pure awareness.
So it's not about trying to fix the other person, but using the interaction as a kind of mirror for your own unconscious patterns.
Exactly. That awareness allows you to respond from presence, from consciousness, instead of just reacting from old habits. It turns potential drama into a chance for real growth, for becoming more awake yourself. The relationship becomes a spiritual practice in a way.
And Tolle also touches on how different identities might play into this journey. He brings up some interesting points about women and people who might feel like outsiders.
Yeah, he suggests women, generally speaking, might be naturally closer to being, finding it easier to feel and be present in their bodies. He notes how many ancient cultures used female forms to represent the formless spirit. He also points out that feeling like an outsider, maybe being different in some way, like being gay, for instance, can actually be a help on the path to enlightenment. It can force you to disidentify from the usual socially conditioned patterns of thought and behavior.
That makes sense. If you don't fit the standard mold, you're maybe less likely to be completely trapped by it.
Exactly. But, and this is a crucial but, he warns that if you then form a new identity based on that difference, say identifying strongly as an outsider or with any specific label, that just becomes another trap. You've swapped one egoic identity for another. It still makes you unreal, he says, and ultimately keeps you from peace. The goal is to go beyond all mind-made identities, not just trade them in.
He also talks about the deeper nature of reality itself, hinting at something beyond all the forms we see, something he calls the unmanifested. What's he getting at there?
He introduces this idea of the unmanifested, describing it as the invisible source of all things, the being within all beings. It's not some far-off place or abstract idea. He talked about it as a realm of deep stillness and peace, but also of joy and intense aliveness. And crucially, it's accessible right now, in the stillness of the present moment, when we manage to quiet the mental noise.
So it's not something we achieve later, but something we can connect with right here, right now.
Yes, when you become present, you become, in a way, transparent to this pure consciousness, this being that emanates from the source. Tolle even talks about physical death as a potential portal to this unmanifested, but one that's often missed if we haven't touched that dimension during our lives. And paradoxically, while the body and death are ultimately part of the illusion created by the ego, the body is also our only point of access to our true nature, to the unmanifested. It's through the body, through present moment awareness in the body that we find it.
So what does it really mean, then, to achieve salvation or liberation, in Tolle's view? It sounds less like reaching a destination and more like a fundamental shift in how we perceive things.
Absolutely. True salvation, he says, is freedom from fear, from suffering, from a perceived state of lack and insufficiency, and therefore from all wanting, needing, grasping, and clinging. It's freedom from compulsive thinking, from negativity, and especially freedom from being trapped in psychological past and future. Your mind will tell you, oh, you need more time, or you need to achieve this, or become that to be free. But the core truth Tolle offers is this. You get there by realizing that you are there already. There's no future point to reach because there is only one point of access, the now.
And this realization, this presence, leads to a different kind of joy, something deeper than just feeling happy because things are going well.
That's right. Joy, according to Tolle, is uncaused. It doesn't depend on anything happening outside. It arises from within as the joy of being. It's actually your natural state, your birthright, independent of conditions. This is totally different from happiness, which always relies on external things. And so it's always temporary, always fluctuating, and ultimately unsatisfying. He states it bluntly. Nothing out there will ever satisfy you except temporarily and superficially. Real joy is found not in getting more, but just in being present. It's an inner wellspring that's always there, waiting to be uncovered.
Wow, this deep dive into the power of now really hammers home how our minds, amazing tools that they are, can also be the biggest barrier to our own peace and fulfillment. And the way out isn't to fight the mind, but to cultivate this conscious presence in the man. Now, just watching it without getting swept away.
Yeah, and Tolle encourages us to make it a regular practice, a habit, to monitor your mental, emotional state through self-observation. He suggests asking yourself frequently throughout the day, am I at ease at this moment? Or simply, what's going on inside me right now? The key is to keep directing your attention inward to your thoughts, yes, but also to your feelings and the actual sensations in your body instead of being constantly lost in the outside world or in your head.
The simplicity of that advice is kind of staggering, but you can feel the potential power in it. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if the biggest revolution isn't about changing the world outside, but about quieting the relentless noise inside our own heads? And what if in that quiet space, that stillness, you find not an ending, but the actual true beginning of who you really are?